Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Currin, and I'm so excited to be doing the first podcast with my good friends, Deborah King and Kathryn Whittington. How are you ladies doing tonight?
I'm well, thank you, Matthew.
I'm great, thank you.
So this is the new podcast, and it's called Life is the New Cool. And so I think that that's really an awesome name. And we're going to get into the why behind Life is the New Cool here in just a moment. But before we do this, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves to the audience and let them know who we are. So Kathryn, why don't we start with you?
Okay, great, thank you. So I am Kathryn Whittington. I'm one of the Ashtabula County Commissioners here in Northeast Ohio. And I am here because addiction has really affected not only me personally, but my family, and I deal with it every day here as a county commissioner. So looking forward to working with both of you on this, and I'll turn it over to Deborah.
Well, thank you, Kathryn. I'm Deborah King. I am a survivor of 15 years. I've overcome addiction to cocaine. I am the CEO and founder of It Takes a Life to Save a Life, which is dedicated to the perseverance of life. We deal with overdose, addiction, prevention, suicide awareness, domestic violence, bullying, into inhuman trafficking. So anything that deals with the perseverance of life is what I stand for. So I created Life is the New Cool because when it started, we had all the senseless school shootings. We were in the middle of the opioid pandemic, and life was getting taken for granted. And I feel that it is the greatest gift we can have. How we live that life is the greatest gift we can give back. So I wanted to change the mindset of America to know that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to know that life is truly the new cool. And with COVID going on today, how more appropriate can we appreciate life?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, and I'll introduce myself, but you hit it spot on right there. So much going on with COVID nowadays. I mean, addiction is up, alcoholism's up, suicides are up, domestic violence is up, abuse is up. So there's so much that we can talk about and we will talk about on this podcast, which is really exciting to me. So a little bit about myself. My name is Matthew Currin. I'm a retired Marine Corps pilot. I flew 5 years and 8 months for Wake Forest Baptist University Air Medical, flew all over the country as a relief pilot, air medical wise. And so I've seen a lot of things that have happened that, addiction has affected people and affected their lives. So really kind of a big thing. And it's really kind of, on my heart. So I went back during that time frame because I was doing a lot of speaking and I got my degree in counseling. And so I have a degree in counseling and I work with a lot of people with PTSD because I am a retired Marine, moral injury, people who are in addiction, and so I'm now also the pilot for Roger Penske and the Team Penske NASCAR and Indy team. Been doing that for a couple years, but I'm also the founder of Convene Communities, which you will find a community, our group inside of there that is Life is the New Cool, and about Deborah, about your nonprofit will be in Convene Communities. So really excited about that because we'll be able to take all of our recordings that we do, we'll be able to put them in there and people can go in and communicate, collaborate, and really kind of just come in and be a part of what we're trying to accomplish here. So let's talk about that. What are we trying to accomplish with this podcast? So Kathryn, how about you talk about that?
So I took Rural America, Tackling the Drug Epidemic, which is actually how Matthew and I met. We met when I spoke in North Carolina. Rural America's Tackling the Drug Epidemic is really about how my story and journey was affected by addiction and how unique Ashtabula County is in dealing and with the epidemic. We partner together. We have great collaboration between all of our social service agencies and our law enforcement. We have great rapport with state and federal legislators along with the local elected officials as well. So working together seemed to be very natural here in Ashtabula County, but what I found speaking across the United States is that is not the norm.
Mhm.
We have a huge stigma attached to anyone that is involved with addiction or close to addiction, mental health, any of those pieces. And it really, I wanted to make it known that it happens to all of us. You know, addiction is there, and you shouldn't be ashamed, and we need to talk about it. And so reducing that stigma across the United States to help our communities heal is really why I'm here.
Yeah. If you don't know somebody, if it hasn't been you that's been involved in it, you know somebody who has, or you have a family member or a friend or somebody who has been down that path. And I think it's so much more common than we really want it to be, right, Deborah? I mean, this is in the United States, this is a big issue that we're dealing with, and something that you went down that path, and God bless you, and so glad that you've came out the other side, and that things have gone well for you, and that you're out there making a difference in people's lives. So from your point of view, let's talk about it a little bit more, and maybe talk about what led you to this.
Well, for me, when I was able to come out of the other side, I said, there has to be a reason that people turn to some kind of numbing substance or something to just remove them from their current reality. So that's when I went back to school to get my master's degree in mental health, because mental health is the core to any underlying addiction. I also personally feel that everybody is addicted to something.
Yeah.
We just don't talk about it. You might be addicted to shopping. You might be addicted to chocolate. You might be addicted to, just buying stuff off of QVC. We all have something that we do excessively, but we have to learn to talk about it. Stuffing it creates a bigger problem.
Yeah.
But if we can change the mindset of America and we can talk about it, we can then respect it and we can then defeat it.
Yes.
Because we have to respect it. It is not, again, end addiction for that time. But if it's not within their fibers to stay that way, it was all for nothing. So you have to fight for it every day.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be that encouraging voice to say, I'm a living, breathing example that it can be done. I will never tell you it's easy, but it's possible. So as long as we have life, we have hope.
Yeah. And we were supposed to have another friend of ours on with this, right, on as part of the podcast, and as somebody who was in recovery for many years, is who I met. Kathryn is who I met you through. You were speaking at his event, and unfortunately, he had a setback, and that came from a medical dental condition where he got into a bad spot, had some dental work done, and it led him back down that path. And it's so easy to go back down that path. It's so easy to be in recovery. And once you're in recovery, then to have some trigger, and that trigger might happen. It might just be life that triggers it, but it could be something as far as an injury or a car accident. You never know. So, Kathryn, what do you have to say about that?
So I think it is so important to know that relapse is part of recovery. Relapse is very different than the initial addiction. As we speak with people in recovery, um, they talk about that when they have relapsed, it's very different. It's not the same as it was when they started using. Um, they know the path to go down to get that help. It's getting to that place to raise their hand and say, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And we can't do it for anybody other than yourself.
Yeah.
People can wish you well, but you can't do it for mom, dad, sister, brother, husband, wife. None of that works.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through your urges and cravings and it's on your back, that person doesn't know how you feel. So you can't say, well, you can just stop when you want to. Well, that's
Yeah.
like telling me to just stop breathing.
Yeah.
Because it became a very integral part of my everyday routine. So you have to want it more than anything else in the world. And my slogan for myself is, nobody can remove me from this seat. I don't care who you are or what it
Yeah.
is, but nothing or nobody will make me go back there. And it's worked thus far. Now, I've had days where it crosses your mind, but luckily through my own education, I know how to talk myself out of it, because a thought only lasts 7 seconds. Anything past that is an obsession. Call somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And, so when we're dealing with somebody who has relapsed, the best thing to do is let that person know that you're there. Let them know that the moment they're ready, raise your hand. We're here for you. We can get you the help you need. Um, you know, they have to work through it. I was told the other day in speaking with someone who has relapsed and working to get them into recovery, they said to me, I have things to take care of first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, so you're not ready? No, that's not what I said. I have things to take care of.
Yeah.
So in their mind, they have some things that they need to take care of before they're ready or willing or able to make that call back to me to say, I'm ready to go to treatment.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that a lot of times they're so busy beating themselves up that they're the only ones that's holding it against them. It's not the rest of us that's willing to step in and say, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up.
Yeah.
We're going to always help you get up, but they go through that process of beating themselves up because, yes, you did know better, but
And
life
you know
happens.
the steps.
You know
You
the
know the
steps.
steps. And so knowing those steps and knowing that you're beating yourself up on a regular basis, a lot of the families that I've worked with in addiction, talk about not being loved by anybody and not having anyone. So it's really important to show those who are in addiction or have relapsed and are in active addiction again, reaching out to them, whether they respond to you or not. That's really not what you're there for. You're there to show that you love them, you care for them, and you are there for them. And that is what.
So we all have a high in us. Not everybody has a recovery left in them.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when they relapse, they really have to dig deep to pull themselves out, because it's harder that time, because they know better.
Yeah.
But we have to show them that no matter how far you fall, we're like a long extended ladder, because my hand is held on to Kathryn's hand, that's held on to your hand, that's held on to the next person, because in all honesty, it's more of us than it is of the so-called normal people that don't get high.
Yeah.
It's more sickies than it is wellies.
Yeah. I was on a call with some gentlemen a couple of weeks ago, and every one of them was in long-term recovery, but all of them had had a slip, a recent slip, but they're still in recovery. We talked about it. And the reason why I say that is because when I say a slip, they had had a 24-hour or less slip, and not a bad slip, but each of them like realized it. They realized that they had that moment, right? And they were all, and it was good for them because they came on and they recognized as they were talking about it that they're more the norm than they are, because they didn't like it that had happened to them. And to me, I'm like, okay, that may have happened, but that's not a failure. I said, that's a victory. That's a victory because you didn't keep going. You had a small slip and you corrected it and you went back forward. You kept your sobriety. You kept going where you needed to go instead of having that slip and going back to that place where you were. And that was a good thing, because again, like you said, everybody has those backdrops. We don't want people to, but they do.
They do. It is part of recovery, and having those family members and those friends understand that it is part of recovery. And the biggest thing is the stigma that goes along with it. In my situation, the first encounter that I had with the opiate epidemic was 4 months after moving into our new house that we had built. Our back doors were kicked in and we were burglarized. So, they took everything. I had everything, and I had everything boxed and labeled. We had just moved in. I hadn't unpacked yet. So it was very easy for them to come in and take everything, right? Because everything was boxed and labeled. We moved into an area that had no internet. So the TVs were just sitting there. So they were able to just pick them up and take them, So after that, so my first experience with the opiate epidemic, I was a victim.
Yeah.
And so, with that came an obsession, an addiction to solving my case. And I truly thought I was a detective. I'll just, I really did. I was.
You're sitting next to Perry Mason right there.
Exactly. So, with that, we just, I took that energy and I worked hand in hand with the police. I'm sure our local deputies probably got tired of me calling, but I would call with information. I connected a lot of dots and people connections. I guess I was always looking for why was I chosen. But as I went to the jewelry store to, get the appraisals on the jewelry that was taken, the lady behind the counter said, "Oh, we were burglarized 2 or 3 years ago by addicts." So I mean, as I was telling people what happened, I became not unique. It was the norm.
Right.
So that really, I was like, no matter where I turned, the insurance company, the jewelry place, the police department, when people asked, and I was telling them, "Oh yeah, we were robbed a while back ago, or there were burglarized," so I mean, it was not unique at all that this had happened to us. And this goes back to 2013. This wasn't in the height of a pandemic. The opiate epidemic had started and was on the uprise. I was working with families at Children's Services who were, working for reunification with their children. And so, not a unique situation.
Not at all. And, I've had clients that when I hear their stories, one of it was 2 young men involved. One, they were getting high together. One OD. So the other one robbed him while he was laying there dying. Said, "Well, you won't need this anymore." Luckily, he lived and went to him and said, "You were gonna let me die just for this." And that's what triggered him to save his own life, because he saw at that point, nobody cared about me but me.
Right.
And he had to take that stand. And that's when I want everybody who's in addiction, fighting for your recovery is the only time I give you permission to be selfish. You have to put you first, because if you don't, that's when you're gonna fall. Because if you ever put your integrity or your emotions or
Absolutely. You have to be the one who wants it, right? No, you said it earlier. Nobody can want it for you. I can't go to somebody and say, "Hey, Deborah, hey, Kathryn, you really need to go and get into a program. You really need to go to rehab. You really need," that means nothing It falls on deaf ears, because until it's important to be there to support and to know that for them, you to know that I'm there for you. But until you, like both of you have said, until you want to do it, you have to want to do it yourself, right? And then it's key to have the resources for people to fall into, to go to. And that's what you're talking about, Kathryn, and you, Deborah, is how, and in your areas, what resources do you have? Because I find that people struggle with that. They might want help, they don't know how to get help. And that's one of the big issues that I see, like you said, Kathryn, when you go around America, is that it's so disjointed in so many places. People don't know where to turn. They don't know where to go. And it's great if you have insurance, but what if you don't have insurance? What do you do then?
So here in Ashtabula County, which is why I find that we are so unique and so fortunate, we have a great collaboration amongst not only our counseling agencies, but with our ADAMS board, so our mental health and addiction board. And they have beds available, they pay for beds through grant dollars, money that has been down from the CARES Act, or CARA. So these are all different pieces. We have a great prevention coalition. We have a substance abuse program, that there's a team for that. So we have a lot of these connected pieces through all of our social service agencies. When I spoke in Florida, in Tampa, which is where I actually met our mutual friend, who was there as a resource, there were so many people that came up to me and said, your law enforcement works with you guys? Your mental health agency actually works with the community? So what we were doing was very unique. The other thing is that we have a dedicated task force. So we had a tri-county task force for many years that were dedicated to Ashtabula and 2 of our neighboring counties and taking drugs off the streets. We have since now, our contracts ended and we all kind of went our separate ways. So we have, they are 1.5 years old now. They are our crime enforcement agency of Ashtabula County, which I helped create and fund with grant dollars, that is dedicated to taking drugs and dealers and violent crime off the streets. So we are making a difference here. And so that's what I want to bring to other communities.
Yeah.
I want them to know that, reaching out, crossing that aisle, talking, and getting those relationships built can make a world of difference for our residents. We have ways to pay if they don't have insurance. We have facilities. We have other means to pay for beds for those that do not have insurance.
Yeah.
That's a great asset. And as well as the more vocal and the more vivid of a picture we paint, we can also solicit to get scholarships for people that need to go into treatment. And, if we get enough momentum behind us, just like we're going through Convene Community now, that community needs to be a network that talks to each other, because as addicts, we take us everywhere we go.
Yeah.
So when we go and change geography, it doesn't change the fact that we're an addict in recovery, or an addict attempted to be in recovery. So we need to have that chain of voices that Kathryn could pick up the phone and call another area and get in touch with their social services and say, hey, we have people coming, or they're asking for help there. This is what we did. How can we set you up?
Yep.
So we want to be that voice to help spread the word, to get help to everybody who needs it. Because a lot of problem is people are in denial of being in denial. They don't know that they have a problem, because to them, this is normal.
Right.
So it's hard to see the picture when you're sitting inside the frame. So you need to just be able to plant a seed and let them hear that for themselves. And when they can look down and say, this isn't right, so I don't have nothing left. I done sold everything I own. Something in my behavior is not right. So I think I need some help. But when it becomes their idea versus your idea, they're more willing to do it because that's the first step to helping yourself.
And I think when you throw that seed out and say, hey, when you're ready, raise your hand. I have a place for you to go.
Absolutely.
Once they do that, it becomes their own idea and they call you and they say, can you help me get into treatment?
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
So it becomes, they own it.
That's right. You know, I want to be the call before it gets to that point. When you're thinking about, I'm on a slip, call me. Let's talk through that.
Talk through that.
Let's try to prevent that slip from happening, because we mentally relapse way before we pick up. We thought it all out. You know, I can go do this. I'm gonna put this aside. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do. By Friday, the plan has already been put into motion. I started to plan on Monday, and it just falls into place. That's where we want to interrupt that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, I had come across a young woman who also speaks on the addiction and recovery. And as a former addict, she told me, we were in a meeting and she said 7 minutes. And I said, oh, what is that define? Like, what is 7 minutes to you? And she said 7 minutes was all it took for me to decide to use, to call a dealer, to get the drug, and to start using. Wow. 7 minutes. So it's very powerful to hear that. Yeah. And I'm always reminded of that conversation that day in that training, that 7 minutes it took her just to reconnect. And she had, you know, been sober for many years. So it doesn't matter. You still have that connection. And it's, you know, we want to be here. We want to be part of Convene Communities so that those that are thinking about it can reach out through Convene and get in touch with us, and Absolutely. We can put them in touch with somebody in their area. Because we know this is, you know, this isn't just Ashtabula County. I mean, you are in North Carolina.
Absolutely.
We are airing nationally. So, I mean, we will help you get in touch with someone in your area to get you the help you need.
Absolutely. And, you know, counseling can be summed up to me is the ability to listen. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the problem is nobody listens to you until it's too late. Then you say, well, I wish they would have said something. They should have let me know they were feeling that bad. They've been trying in their own way, but you just didn't listen. Yeah. So, you know, what they say in meetings, take the cotton out your ears and put it in your mouth so that you can't talk, just listen. You know, because for me, when I first went into recovery, I said I put a first year on layaway because it took me a year to learn how to be in recovery. Mm-hmm. So I always hold 1 year aside. So when I tell you I have 15 years, I have 16. But that first year I had to learn how to do it, because you have to learn how to live all over again and do all the things you like without a crutch. Right. And life is so much more fun when you can enjoy it. When you can live it. That's once again why life is the new cool. To wake up and know that I'm alive and I can experience taking a deep breath and seeing the sunrise and listening to the birds, or reading something and understanding, or hearing a conversation and participating in it. That's more enjoyable. Or I know when I wake up tomorrow, I know what I did last night. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's what haunts a lot of people. And when you think about alcoholics, that I had a colleague that was in a blackout for a year. Oh my. And when he came out of it, he asked the lady, why are you in my house? And she said, I'm your wife. And she had to show him the wedding video and the photo album. He knew not who she was. Wow. Now you're walking around functioning a year in a total blackout. See, that's frightening to me.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is. And, you know, and I'm so glad both of you brought up Convene Communities, because Actually watching right now is Anthony McCauley, and Anthony McCauley is the community leader of Convene Hope and Support. That's where Life is the New Cool will live. And what we're trying to do right there is just what you just said, Kathryn. We're trying to build that coalition. We're trying to build that community where anybody and everybody can turn to and find those resources. Because listen, we all have a story, right? Every single one of us have a story. And we may not want to share our dirt. So we might want to come into a resource instead of going to Google, instead of searching, which it can be overwhelming. We can come to a community where there's full of resources, but not only full of resources, it's full of people that have like-minded stories, just like we do, right? People who are in recovery, people who have walked down that path, people who have family members who walk that. That's one of the hardest things for family members who have somebody in active addiction. How in the world do you handle it? You know? So let's build this community, not just an Ashtabula County community. Let's build this national community, right? Let's talk about life as the new cool across the whole entire country. Let's really build this resource. So if you're somebody with a recovery story, if you're somebody with a group that helps people, we want you to be a part of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do, because that's what this is all about. The person in addiction, the person being abused, the person that might be being bullied, just like you said, Deborah, it's not just about addiction. It's about all those other things. Let's build that community where people feel like they have a safe place to come in and work together on building something special, that resource.
And that's the key, to feel safe, to not feel ostracized, to not feel less than. You know, we're all human. And because we're human, we have the ability to make a mistake. But we also have that same ability to correct that mistake.
Absolutely.
And we want to be the voices to represent those who didn't make it, that they didn't die in vain. And if they could trade places, you already know that they would. So we want to keep you on this side, and we want to keep you alive. And there's nothing too difficult that we can't help you overcome. You know, you don't want to hear that, well, you can't help me, I'm too far gone. There's no such destination as too far gone. If you want it, we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's pretty cool. One of the things about Convene too is you can come in and you can participate anonymously. So people can come in, and there's people who write their experiences about their battles with depression, alcoholism, addiction. And what's unique about that is because when they do that within Convene and they write about their situation, what are they asking for? They're asking for the help. And they're asking for, let's just, not to use you as an example, Deborah, but let's just say that it is somebody that is in addiction and they're reaching out for help. You can be a part of their experience and say, hey, I've been there. This is my story. Let me help you, or let me help you find resources. And that's what's so cool about it, you know?
You know, I can say for a fact that some of the greatest moments in my life as a therapist is when I see the light bulb go on and you see that you've made a difference and an impact on somebody's life to change for the better. And I watch a lot of the people that I've worked with now have families, and I get to see them as moms and dads and living a life that they never thought they could have. And the letters I get and the parents that just say thank you because you cared enough when I didn't even care.
Right.
You know, because parents and family members have to understand that the person that comes out of the addiction and recovery is not the same person that went in. So you can't hold what they did against them, because addiction was what they did. It's not who they are.
Yeah.
And I think as a parent of someone in addiction, that was probably the hardest lesson for me to learn, is that, you know, if and when they come back, it's not the same person that went in.
Right.
You know, we don't, we look at that, and I've been always very forthright with my story, and that I have three beautiful little girls, 7, 6, and 4 now. My youngest is 18, so I'm starting all over again. But they're the reason that I had to look at that lesson and say, okay, when he's ready, when and you go through, as a parent, you go through enabling. I'm going to be the first one to say it. I was an
Absolutely.
enabler. And then you move into almost like an anger. And from there, you move to loss and grief. And then you move into, I just got to get through the day.
Yeah.
Because I have 3 little girls that depend on me. And so that is our focus every day, is what are their needs? What do they need to be taken care of while their parents are away? And we're waiting for them to come back, and there's a place once they get back, but we're waiting for that place.
Yeah.
So, it's really important that as, a victim of a crime, and then as a parent of an addict, that this can happen to anyone.
Yep.
Anyone.
Absolutely.
As an elected official, I am fortunate that I have a voice that can be heard nationally.
Well, addiction has no biases.
It doesn't care. It does not.
If you're rich, poor, educated, uneducated, black, white, yellow, green, purple.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It will get you if you let it.
If you let it. And you have to, we were talking about what those triggers are and what those setbacks are. And, so I think about that every day. And, what are those triggers? And, it's a very fine line as a parent that you walk, because in all my training, I was still an enabler.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the
I want your son or daughter to suffer.
Exactly. So, I look back on the thousands of dollars that were spent, everything that was stolen from us. I can't think about those things anymore. I have to think about, that when he raises his hand and said, I'm ready to come home. That's what I have to look forward to make sure that I have those necessary resources available in my community, so that when he raises his hand, or the neighbor's child raises their hand, or somebody who, does, go back and make a mistake and slip up and, go down that path again, that there are resources.
Yeah.
And as a county commissioner, I'm able to help connect and facilitate that.
And that's a good thing that you were willing to take on the 3 little girls, because now when he's ready, you've given him something else to strive for.
Yes.
If he would have lost his children, then it's like, well, what do I have to live for? You go out on reckless abandonment. So as parents, I'm a parent now, and I can only imagine what my parents felt. And I was a real good grown up. I didn't start addiction early. I was over 40, okay? So, I'm like, I've done the college thing. I did everything that a child can do for a parent. I'm going to just go do something for myself. Well, luckily it didn't last too long, but the education of it, I think I had to go through it to get to where I'm at now, because I do have that voice. I do have that platform. And I was a child that got to experience a lot of things that people only dream about.
Yeah.
So I see it on a whole different level. But in addiction, you could be the king of the world and be sitting right there with the bum of the world, but you're equal.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that a lot.
Equal.
Yeah.
and everybody doesn't have the benefit that when I got tired of playing, I want to get high, I got to go home to the suburbs. Everybody doesn't have that chance.
Yeah.
You know, and the funny part, I can think of stories where if somebody came and asked somebody who I was, one of the girls would say, "Oh, these are my friends from the Science Institute. They're here to do research." And we would laugh, but in fact, that's really what I was doing. I was researching because before I could talk about something or condemn it, I had to understand it. I don't want to just take your word for it. I had to experience it myself. But luckily, I was fortunate enough to find my own way back.
Yeah.
You know, because most people don't go back to school at 50 years old to start a whole new career. And I had the benefit of being in sports and entertainment. So I've seen things that you don't see. You know, I've seen going to parties and you walk in the house and cocaine is on serving trays and they pass it around like they're asking you want a pretzel, you want an hors d'oeuvre.
Right.
So it was the norm. And to be able to function in that and learn how to say no is a wonderful thing. And that's why I like to help also athletes and entertainers, because we feel we're above it and we don't need the help and we're the ones dying the fastest.
Yeah.
Because the everyday addict is willing to admit, I'm an addict, I need some help. They just get yes men and yes women around them that will help facilitate until they die and they move on to the next target. And it's terrible because you become the party supplier.
Yeah.
So how much are you worth to them? They're not your friends. They're there as long as you can facilitate their high for free just by saying you're good, you're great, you're fun, you're the best. You know, those are the labels we need to run from. We
Yeah.
just want to be good human beings
Yeah.
and be respected and cared for and appreciated because we all have something to offer. Even that voice of the worst addict you can find has something to offer to say, why don't want to do this?
Yeah.
You know, so we have to be open and receptive to hear the lessons that even the lowliest person can give you, but they can give you an example of what not to do. And now you have to come back and circle around and help them get back up to where you are.
Yeah.
So no life is unimportant and no loss too great that we're not there for you, because the biggest loss we lose is ourself.
Sure. Yeah. And it's so hard. You know, the family member side of the house, you know, me personally, I've never used drugs, not once, you know, but I have, or alcohol. I don't have a problem with that. I have family members that struggle, and it's so hard to know where to turn and what to do and how to support that, how to take care of it. You know, it's such a difficult thing. And sometimes you feel lost, you know, knowing what to do. So what do y'all have to say about that as not the user, but the family member? And you've talked about it a little bit, Kathryn, but where do family members turn? What do they do when they're trying to help? And what is something you talked about enabling? I see that so much. Let me tell you one other story. Enabling is one of the worst things because you just think, oh, I can help them through. I can help them through. I can help them through. Well, when you're enabling, you're only just making it worse. You know, you're only prolonging it because they know and that they can continue to manipulate and get over on it. So a good friend of mine, she's a mental health counselor. I love her to death. I've interviewed her probably 10 times. We've been on it, and it sounds very cruel, but if she's with clients who are parents or family members that are true enablers, she'll say to them, hey, do you love your son or your daughter? Do you love them to death? And what's the parent going to say? Absolutely. I love them to death. And she'll say, well, I need you to go tomorrow and I need you to buy a life insurance policy for them. And they're like, do what? Go buy a life insurance policy for my kid? And she said, yeah, because I truly believe you love your child to death, but you're enabling them to the point that they're going to die. So all you can do is go buy that life insurance policy to prepare for their death. And she said it makes people mad, but it's also a wake up call to people because our enabling, and if we keep giving money, if we keep doing the things that we do to, yeah, I'm going to give you some money, but that money really is not going for food like you say it's going to go for, it's going for your alcohol or your high, you know? So what do y'all have to think about that? What are some comments on that?
So as a parent enabler, I started out with, here's $20 for gas, you need gas money, okay. As time went on, enabling changed because I was like, okay, if you need gas, I'll meet you at the gas station and I will fill up your tank. There wasn't the money changing, oh, you need your water bill paid. But what I found as an enabler, that I was in denial myself. I was in denial that there was something going on other than a financial struggle. That financial struggle was caused because of a heroin addiction. So that's, the biggest thing. And coming to terms with that is really difficult. We talk about the addiction and the addict, but when you talk about that family member who is the enabler, who is in denial, and to bring them around and come out of that. And I'll tell you, it was the hardest thing to do, to ignore those phone calls because I knew what they were for. I, ignore those text messages. Can I have $10 for gas? Can I have $20? We need food. We're going hungry. Well, it's a hard line as a parent, as a human being, to know that somebody is saying that they are in need and not to reach out and help them. I mean, I have spent over 25 years in social services. It's my nature that if you say I need help or I need this, I'm going to find that way to help you. So for me, the struggle was making that disconnect, getting away from it, separating myself, and actually going, okay, I can't do this anymore. When you're ready to tell me what's going on.
That's the biggest part.
Mm-hmm.
Their enemy is your truth.
Yes.
And it's hard because as the child, they're going to say, well, we let you down. We disappointed you. All we ever want as a parent is for our child to be happy
and healthy.
And it can be very difficult because, for example, in heroin addicts, the getting high part has gone already. They needed to survive, to be healthy and not be sick.
Mm-hmm.
The pain is overwhelming. They can't get out of the bed, so they have to have that $10 just to get out the bed. Being high is a thing of the past. It's maintenance. So now we're trying to survive. You don't want to give them the money, but if you learn about it, what they're going through. That pain is just like telling somebody, we're not going to help you get any medicine and you're just going to fight it through. So we have to look at addiction as a cancer. Meetings, chemo, conversations, support groups. That's the chemotherapy and the radiation to the cancer of the addiction.
Yeah.
Now, the best way to help an addict is with a recovering addict, because you can have all the sense in the world, but if you haven't walked in my shoes, there's nothing you can tell me.
Yeah.
Because that theory or that they show you in that book, that's not going to help me. That's not going to help me get over this craving. That's not going to help me go find somebody that's going to tell me my idea is a good idea.
Yeah.
And, one of the key things here in Ashtabula County, we have peer support.
Yes.
you know.
That's very needed.
So I think that is key in recovery, you know, one of those more, you know, more unique things here in Ohio and Ashtabula County that we're utilizing peer supports,
Absolutely.
you know, in recovery, because I can't relate to that initial high of heroin and the constant daily maintenance and chasing
Yeah,
that high. I
absolutely.
can't relate to that. What I can relate to is the family
Yep.
of the addict. I can relate to the addict in them raising their hand and saying, I need help. Let me show you where to get that.
Yeah.
Those are the things I can do, but I can't walk that walk with them. I can be by their side. I just don't have the experience that they are going to need to heal and become whole again.
And
But
it's, you know, and just like in anything, all meetings aren't good meetings.
No, that is true.
All people that say they're helping you aren't really helping you. They're helping themselves. If a person is looking for some kind of recognition because they so-called helped you, run from them. Because they, and some of our systems is like that. I called the Veterans Administration Hospital. I had a classmate who found me on Facebook from boarding school. She said, please help me. She's a veteran. I called the hospital. I said, I need to get her in. She needs some treatment. They said, well, is she high now? I said, no, we've survived that. We got her to the point where she's okay and not at risk of dying. They said, then take her out and get her high. She doesn't meet the qualifications.
yeah, can you believe that? Yes. Yes. I know somebody a couple of weeks ago who wanted help, who sat in the parking lot and drank so much, took their shoes off, walked in the dirt, and walked through the doors because they knew for them to get help, that's the point that they had to be at, going through that door to get help. So they sat in the parking lot and drank an entire fifth of alcohol before they walked through the door. That is phenomenal to me.
That's why we're here today, because that has to change.
Yes.
As an elected official and working with legislators, those are the things that we have to change in our policies and procedures of how monies come down and how they're spent and how that hospital or that recovery or that treatment facility is allowed to help. Those are the things that need to be changed. We need to change those policies and procedures. Somebody sitting in a parking lot and drinking to that extent is unacceptable.
It is.
We should be able to have somebody walk into a VA, walk into an emergency room and say, I need help, I'm an addict.
And
And
not
get
just be
help.
looked at as, oh, they're here to
Exactly.
seek pain medication, or they're pill seeking, or they're not telling the truth. That's not your place. You know, you don't have a heaven or a hell to put me in. So help me. That's what your job is. And that's where we have the disconnect, because the way the guidelines to meet insurance, insurance will kill more people than the drug will, because they will give you so much for, like my policy, for example, I got 2 days a year for substance abuse treatment. 2 days a year. So why am I paying this high price insurance, but I could get 8 days if I went under mental health? So I got a week and some change to try to change my own life. You know what I'm saying? But some people don't have that. But the ability to just walk in and say, help me, and actually get help, that's the goal Kathryn and I are trying to reach, because you shouldn't put a value on what's qualified as help.
Well, and here's the other thing. So my son, after receiving treatment in a local facility, 30 days came and they said, okay, you're done.
And that's just a shame.
And literally he walked out the facility and his buddy picked him up, and guess what?
They started all over again.
That 30 days was an absolute waste of time because he walked out those doors and he was able to use again.
Well, see, you know, the dealers sit outside the meetings. I used to come out the meetings. I went to recovery in Florida and they were right there. So there's no protection, but addiction is everywhere. That's why I say you have to be selfish and want it for yourself. 30 days only cleans the cobwebs out and it allows you to rest, because while you're in that 30 days, you're already planning your relapse.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to your friends on the phone, you're saying, when I get out, this is what I want. And they're going to have it for you. We got you. But they don't realize that when we clean our system, what we were able to do before, we're going to need twice as much. And that clean system might not be able to stand it, and we're going to die.
Yeah.
Florida, they would give you money to go get high again, go into treatment, stay 14 days, AMA, come out, they'll give you another $1,000 to go get high, and they send you through the treatment cycle all over again.
And here's the thing. So with treatment, as most know, especially when you're working with opiates, you're talking minimum recovery, 24 to 36 months, minimum, for your brain to actually change and revert back to not being dependent on that drug. So most of our treatments are 30, 60, 90, sometimes you get 120 days if you're lucky, if you qualify. So what are we actually accomplishing in that time? Because there's a lot longer to go in that recovery to get you back on track. 24 to 36 months.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have to look at how treatment is being done and administered, and look at that full continuum of care.
Yes.
Where you start with your detox and you move through the program and you're with the same people as far as counselors and doctors and things like that, going through that 24 to 36 months. But on the other end of that continuum is your education and your training and your reentry into the community. So there really has to be a continuum of care from start to finish, so that when you leave your facility, you're not just on your own to show up at an IOP meeting the following Tuesday.
Yeah, that's how it is.
And that's how it is. You leave on a Friday and they're like, well, Tuesday you need to show up at IOP.
Yep.
So, you know, we just, there are a lot of things, but I think, you know, the big focus for us is to make sure that we have the availability of resources for people to come and ask for help, ask for referrals, get those resources they needed, reduce the stigma. Here in Ashtabula County, we can see the change. We can see that stigma leaving. That's not happening nationally yet.
Yeah.
And so we really need to work on that.
Yeah. We got to change the mindset of America, how they look at us, you know, and it was the greatest achievement when they finally said addiction is a disease.
Right.
Because it's not a choice. What if you are a child of a former addict? You were set up from the beginning and you had nothing to do with it. You take one thing and your body is off to the races. Yes. And that's not your fault, but you were predisposed. So you have to understand the total package of what we're dealing with. That's why family histories are so important. Quit hiding it and being ashamed of it, because you're doing your family a disservice. We got to talk about it.
So we're at an hour.
Are we
right?
really?
Yeah, I told you it's going to go fast. I said, this is going to go so fast, it'll be over before you know it. But everyone watching, we're on a mission. The three of us, we are on a mission. The Life is the New Cool podcast. We're going to do some great things. So we have some amazing guests lined up. We won't give you what's coming in the future. This will be a once a month evolution. May end up being more than that as we go, as it grows. Our next podcast is going to be January the 19th, same time. And Kathryn, how about you talk about the January the 19th podcast real quick and who our guests will be? Because this was just an introduction to who hosts the podcast. The next podcast, every time we will have a guest or two guests, maybe depending on the show with us, depending. So Kathryn, talk about it.
Okay, so I have been very fortunate that in my speaking and talking about addiction and testifying in Columbus and all of these things, I found Maurice Claret through a friend. He had sent me some information in regards to an article about Maurice. And so Maurice Claret, the former NFL player who owns and operates the Red Zone treatment facility out of Youngstown, will be joining us on January 19th. We're excited to have him and have him tell his story of being a football player, but dealing with addiction and recovery, and eventually opening up a mental health and addiction recovery center. So we're super excited. Maurice is a great guy. I think everybody will love hearing his story. He does have a book, so I'm sure he'll be talking about that as well. So we look forward to hearing from Maurice on January 19th.
Awesome. And then many, many more great guests to come. We're setting up quite the lineup, so it's going to be really, really wonderful. But this hour went fast, and I think the reasons why it went fast is because it's such an important topic that we all can relate to. We've all been there. We all have that story. So I appreciate you. I'll give you your parting shot here, and then we'll sign off for the night. So Deborah, go first real quick.
Well, for me, I like to challenge everybody to catch the passion and join the movement. Life is the new cool. Kathryn?
So with Life is the New Cool, joining rural America, tackling the drug epidemic, we just want to make that difference. I also will challenge friends, family, and even those strangers that I don't know to join us to help reduce that stigma. And let's take this across the United States and get all of our communities, not just Ashtabula County, healthy again.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because again, life is the new cool. It's not just up in Pennsylvania. It's not just down here in North Carolina. This is national. So can we come together? Can we build a community that's special? And can we reach out and just help each other? Right? That's what this is all about, is let's help each other. Let's come together as a nation, as people. Doesn't matter who you are. We've all gone through some incredible times in the last year with everything that's gone on. It's time to come together. It's time to convene, right? So let's come together and let's convene, and let's really push this. Life is the new cool. Ladies, thank you so much. I've really had a blast. I look forward to doing this every month. Join us in convenecommunities.com, at Convene Communities, and we'll be putting out links to the Life is the New Cool group in there. And just come join us. If you're somebody who has a story, if you're somebody who is walking through the story, if you're somebody who has a family member, whatever it is, we're always here for you. So thank you, ladies. I really enjoyed this. It's been awesome. Long time coming, right?
Have a blessed night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.